If you're looking at Pleasanton right now, trying to figure out what it actually costs to live here in 2026, there's a number you have already seen online and it's going to mislead you. Because after 23 years of selling homes in the East Bay, I can tell you that the median price everybody quotes for Pleasanton is blending two completely different markets altogether. Depending on which one you're actually shopping in, you're off by $150,000 or more before you even start looking. And that's before we get to the cost that never shows up on a single listing. The ones that quietly adds up to more than a car payment every month. So let me show you the real math, starting with the headline number and why it's the wrong one for most of you. Here's the number you'll find on every portal, the median sales price. And year to date in 2026 in Pleasanton across all home types, that's around $1.55 million. Now here's what that figure is not telling you. That 1.55 million is every kind of home mixed together. Condos, townhomes, single-family detached homes, all thrown into one pot and averaged out. Pull out the condos and townhomes and look at the detached single-family homes only. The houses with the yard, the garage, and the driveway, that number is around 1.7 million. So that's roughly a $150,000 gap between the number you saw online and the number that actually applies to you if what you're picturing is a house. And that matters more than it sounds because most people who call me about Pleasanton are not calling about a condo. They're calling because the schools and because they want a yard and a two-car garage and a street their kids can ride their bikes on. That buyer's real entry point is at 1.7 million, not 1.55. So if you've been budgeting off of that blended number, you're short by the price of a nice car. Now, the flip side, if you're open to a townhome or a condo, Pleasanton actually gives you away in that a lot of Tri-Valley buyers don't even realize it exists. The attached side of this market is what pulls that blended median down. And for the right buyer, it's a real entry into these schools at a number that is much lower than 1.7 million. And there's one more piece of that headline number because it explains why so many people show up here with the wrong figure in their head. Look at the blended median, all home types over 3 years. Back in 2024, it was about 1.7 million. In 2025, it came in around 1.62 million. Today, year to date in 2026, like I mentioned, it's at 1.55. So the blended number has drifted down roughly 9% over 2 years. Look, I'm not going to forecast where it goes from here. That's not the point of this video. For your budget, the takeaway is simple. If somebody quoted you a Pleasanton number a year or two ago, that number might be too high today. So between which market you're shopping and which year your information came from, that's two ways the headline number can be wrong before you've even started. That's the first thing nobody tells you. At 1.7 million in Pleasanton, you're generally looking at the established single-family home. 3, maybe even 4 bedrooms, a real yard, a 2-car garage, in a neighborhood where the schools are the reason people move here. That's the center of this market. Go up from there and you get into the newer construction, the bigger lots, and the gated communities where the numbers climb well into the multiple millions fast. But here's the thing I want you to take from this section because it's the whole point of the video. The purchase price is the part everybody plans for. It's the part your lender talks to you about. And it's genuinely not the part that surprises people. What surprises people is everything that lands on top of it. So let's go through it. A quick thing before we get into it. I had a call a few weeks back with a family coming over here from the peninsula. And they had done their real homework. Spreadsheets, the whole thing. They knew their price range. They knew which schools they wanted. And about 10 minutes in the conversation, the husband asked me what his actual monthly number would be, all in. And when we walked through it together, he got quiet. Nothing was wrong. He just hadn't been shown the full picture yet, and nobody had bothered to sit down with him and do it with him. So whether you're buying here and want to know what it really looks like for you, call me, text me, or send me an email. Tell me 2 or 3 things you love and 2 or 3 things that you can't stand. And I'll tell you straight what your real number looks like and whether this town is the right fit. That's what I do all day. Alright, this is the part the portals will never show you. Property taxes. Start here because this is the big one and the math genuinely shocks people. In Pleasanton, the median effective property tax rate is about 1.18%. That's the base 1% plus voter-approved bonds and local school levies stacked on top of it. So run it on a real purchase. On a $1.7 million house, 1.18% is right around $20,000 a year. That's roughly almost $1,700 a month. Every month on top of your mortgage payment forever. Home insurance and fire hazard. This next one, and this is the cost that has changed the most in the last few years. Parts of Pleasanton sits in a fire hazard. CAL FIRE classifies land into moderate and very high fire hazard severity zones, and the Livermore and Pleasanton Fire Department handles those designations locally. What that means practically is that two houses in this town at the same price can have very different insurance situations. Not slightly different, different enough to change whether the deal works. Let me give you another example. A client of mine found their forever home. Gorgeous property. It was well above the $5 million range. He asked me to start, talking to the listing agent and get an offer ready to submit. I said, no problem. While I'm doing that, could you please call your insurance agent and tell them that you're interested in this particular property and get a quote? I told him that I felt that the property seems so close to a fire danger, and to be honest, I was actually 95% sure that it was in a fire danger because I sell in this market year in and year out. So I was fairly certain that's why I had him talk to his agent first. That was a Sunday. By Monday afternoon, I get a frantic call from him. He said, hold off on any negotiations because the insurance he got quoted was $32,000 per year. He could not believe that number. So here's my honest advice, and it's the single most useful thing in this video. Get an insurance quote on the specific address before we write an offer, not after we're in contract. I've watched buyers get all the way to inspections before finding out what coverage on that particular house was going to cost them, and it's usually a lot more than they expected. And by then, they've spent so much money and burned weeks with that particular house. So what happened to my client was he shopped around some more, and eventually he got a premium that was almost half the original quote. Let's talk about the commute, because in the Bay Area, commute is a cost. Now, Pleasanton sits right at the intersection of 580 and 680, which is genuinely one of the best freeway positions in the entire East Bay. You can get to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, or the Central Valley from here. You've also got two BART stations, West Dublin Pleasanton over by Stone Ridge, and the Dublin Pleasanton on Owens Drive, which is the end of the line. But here's what nobody tells you about those stations. Both of them sits in the middle of the 580 freeway, right on the Dublin border. They're not in your neighborhood. For most of Pleasanton addresses, BART means driving to BART, parking at BART, and then riding BART. That's a different daily life than a town where you walk into the platform and hop on BART. There's also the Ace Rail with the Pleasanton station over by the fairgrounds running towards San Jose. But understand what this is. 4 trains, weekdays only. It's a real option for a specific commuter, but it's not a general purpose transit system. Okay, last piece. Utilities in Pleasanton run about 20% above the national average, and transportation costs run about 23% above that. Overall, the cost of living index here sits around 231 against a national baseline of 100. Let that sink in. That's more than double the national average. Now, the reality is that it's not a Pleasanton problem. It's a Bay Area reality. But it's real money and it belongs in your budget. So let's put the whole thing together. Here's where Pleasanton genuinely wins, and it wins big. The schools are the real thing. It's not marketing. Pleasanton Unified carries an A+ rating. It's ranked number 2 in all of Alameda County and inside the top 20 districts in California. Amador Valley and Foothill High Schools both land in the top 50 public high schools in the state. That is the engine under this entire market, and it's the number one thing buyers ask me about. You also get that 580 and 680 position, a downtown that people actually walk to, and a town that has been consistently well run. Now here's where I'm going to be straight with you, because I'm not going to pretend Pleasanton wins everything, okay? You're paying a significant premium over the inner East Bay, and your commute is not shorter for it. You're not buying a shorter drive, you're buying the schools, and you're buying a certain kind of neighborhood. Your BART access looks great on a map, but that is also a cost that you have to factor in. If you're going to the city, that's roughly $15 round trip plus another $3.40 for daily parking. So you're paying close to $20 every day, not even adding your gas. So the affordability math is steep even by Bay Area standards. Median household income here runs close to $200,000, which is one of the highest across the entire Bay Area. So who is this town actually for? It's for the family that has the income and is optimizing hard for schools and want a house with a yard in a stable, well-kept suburb. For that family, Pleasanton is close to the best answer in the East Bay, and they tend to stay for 20 years and beyond. If you're after the shortest commute or for the lowest cost of entry, there are better cities, and I'd rather tell you now than sell you a house that you can't afford in 3 years. So that's the real cost of living in Pleasanton in 2026. Not the sticker price, the whole picture. If you want to know more about the East Bay, I put together a relocation guide. It walks you through the entire East Bay and gives you an overview of what the different regions feel like. After you read that, give me a call and let's find you your dream home, Pleasanton or not. Link in the description. I'm Mac Rogers.